Hey there, all you good boys and girls. Are you tucked in? Are you ready for bed? Well, you're in it for a treat tonight because we're going to be welcoming you to the first ever Bedtime Theater with Barely Balanced. I'm Medium, and tonight we're diving into the world of Barely Balanced with Book 1, The Adventure Begins, the tale of how Barely Balanced became a team and went on their craziest adventure ever. It was written by moi and illustrated by the amazing Thomas Boatwright. Let's dive in. 1513 AD, in a land far, far away and noticeably smellier. Chapter 1. Gross! My sister held the screaming baby at arm's reach as she thrashed her way into the glen I was practicing in. This sudden intrusion caused me to crumple from a rather decent handstand into a far less impressive face stand. She spied me and shuddered. Ew! You're totally at that age now, aren't you? Can't you practice kissing with your hand like a normal teenager? I wasn't. I wiped a clod of dirt from my lips and couldn't help but feel a little guilty. I'd have to buy Mother Earth a drink later. What are you doing here? Getting rid of this monster. She shoved the wailing baby into my hands. You know, the new box of flash powder we just cooked up? Well, this little brat tossed the container at Mom. They went flash all right, and she went up in flames. Dad heard her screaming and tossed a bucket of water on her. She's fine, thank goodness. But now all your brothers are demanding we present Flash Dance at our next show. I need to look after Mom, so this little monster is all yours. But I have my chores to do, I protested, frowning at how whiny I sounded. Trying to make up for that, I added in a falsely deep voice, I'm a man with man things to take care of. My sister burst into laughter. Please, have you forgotten why you're named Medium? How could I? My brothers stood over half a royal foot taller than me and showed it off each town we rolled into. I was only taller than my sisters by an inch, if I stood with perfect posture. Average, nothing special, forgettable little medium, she spat. I puffed up my chest, but part of me knew she was right. I didn't stand tall. I don't have remarkably massive muscles or astounding skinny frame, and all my mediocrity is topped with mousy brown hair and eyes. But that's what I look like, not who I am. One day, I'll make medium mean everything that's amazing. I tried to strike a regal pose, but that merely caused me to almost drop the squirming baby. That's great. My sister turned her back on me and shook the baby drool, or something more sinister, from her hands. Why don't you start now? I think it would be amazing if you watched the baby. Oh, my hero. She rushed off. I hollered after her. You've got the opposite of birthing hips. You've got run away from baby thighs. And here we see one of Thomas's amazing illustrations of the screaming, drooly, snot-covered baby. Ugh. Next page. The infant shook one fist as if challenging my sister to return. I gave the kid a sideways smirk. How about we go back to my crib and share a bottle? The kid screeched, which wasn't the worst reaction one of my pickup lines has received. Drool covered her quivering chin, and snot seeped from one nostril, creating a lopsided mustache. I held her to my face and sniffed. Yep, definitely something sinister. I groaned, then giggled. My sister would be finding a special present in her bed later. Luckily, a gentle breeze blew through the waving branches of the encircling oak trees and pulled the begrimed baby's scent away from me and toward our home. Just to be clear, when I say home, I'm not talking about a boring, old, dusty brick building. Our home is a Vardo. 4 wheels, canvas sides painted with 100 whirling colors, and shocks so fine, I swear other wagons wink at them. It has everything we need. It stores our props, equipment, and food. It's a roof over our heads when it rains, and on clear nights, we lay beneath the stars as fireflies dance and the heavens sparkle with each wish sent their way. And here's the image of the Vardo looking so pretty as the other Vardos scope it out. People call us many things: travelers, pilgrims, tinkers, gypsies, fools, homeless. Those are all just more names that won't define me. We're family, and that's what matters. Besides, most people are just plain excited when we roll into town. Our family might be the only entertainment they get all year. We'd also sharpen their knives, mend their pots, and tempt them with exotic spices, so the village could smell and taste a vast world they'd never be able to visit. Then, in the evenings, we'd put on a performance so good their socks would shoot off and land at our next show to reserve seating. As you can imagine, my life is typically a whirlwind of travel, performances, and learning new skills to wow the next town. Some of my siblings loved music and could play any instrument you gave them, even when you didn't want them to, especially if you were trying to sleep. Others adored science and could fix anything, brew incredible potions, and mend a broken bone so well you never would know it was injured, which was awesome, mainly because I've always been restless, even among a restless people. That's why I fell in love with circus arts, or as my brothers and sisters called them, the show-off arts. They're just jealous. At home, they might be able to ignore me, but let's see them call me average, forgettable medium when I have the crowd roaring with applause. I haven't done that yet, but it's only a matter of time. I'm rather amazing, and I should know, I spend a lot of time with me. I have learned handstands, splits, and how to jump like the fleas that often plague our dogs. I've also juggled nearly everything. Once, even a bunch of cats. With enough catnip, they just pass out and become juggling balls with claws that are hard to drop. Despite all this, I've never dealt with anything more difficult than my baby sister. It was because of her that my great adventure all began. What a little brat. Brat or not, she was family and needed cleaned up. I grabbed a fresh diaper from a line hanging between two of the oaks. Now for the scary part. I undid the pin upon the soiled material and gagged at the devastation she heaped upon my long-term memory. What were we feeding her? As this thought occurred to me, she peed directly into my face. I screamed, which placed the stream into a far worse location. The baby giggled. What the heck? Her aim didn't even make sense, given her female anatomy. I flung a diaper in front of my face while juggling the dirty one aside and placing a clean one over the bursting water line. As I pressed the diaper down, the kid moved with it. It felt like she was floating. I leaned to the side. Jumping, juggling Jesus, she was floating. This time I screamed like a banshee, loud enough to scare off every bear within 10 leagues. And here we see the cats being juggled. Oh. Diapers floated beside her. They circled around us higher and higher. My mouth fell open so wide it nearly rested on my chest. The baby started to pee again, and I shut my mouth with a snap. Foul me twice, shame on me. Plummeting pampers rained down from the darkening sky. Every ounce of my acrobatic skills came into play as I pirouetted and sprang out of the way. What was going on? The babe cooed, obviously enjoying the show. A dive-bombing diaper careened at my face. The setting sun backlit the inertia-filled cotton, turning it into a sinister silhouette zipping through the sky. I was trapped between two trees with no chance of dodging it. I scooped up my baby sister with trembling fingers and used her as a shield. Don't judge me. The diaper zipped just around her and thwacked into a tree trunk like a hammer made of mud. My heart pounded against my chest as if it wanted to flee the scene. My diabolical little sister screamed in such a high pitch that it made my teeth hurt. This was insane! And also, very interesting. How was my baby sister doing this? I had to take her to Grandma. She's our fortune teller, and out of everyone I'd ever met, she had seen the most. If anyone would have an answer, it would be her. And here we see the gross baby being held in front of me so I can dodge the diapers. All around us, birds and frogs battled with my crying sister to see who could make the most noise. I ran to the Vardo. The rest of my family laughed and chatted around a campfire and rapidly disappearing pot of stew. As usual, they ignored me as I hurried into the wagon. Grandma sat inside, slumped in a sagging chair. She was as wrinkled as the earth, her eyes bluer than the ocean and lined with ravines of loving care. Flickering candlelight made our Vardo's painted canvas walls glow like stained glass against the growing darkness outside. Her hands moved with delicate precision, knitting bright yarn into what I hoped was a hero's mask, but was more likely a sock. No hero could demand respect by wearing a fuchsia face tube. Grandma glanced up at the wailing child, and only after I coughed did she acknowledge me. And here we see Grandma with her back turned to us as the baby is very stinky being held up.
Well, if it isn't my favorite grandson.
Her voice was softer than the yarn cascading from her hands. She called all of us her favorite, so she wouldn't have to remember our names.
Grandma,
I held my wailing little sister before me.
I think something's wrong. Oh? What could be wrong with this cute little...
My sister retched directly into Grandma's knitting basket. We both stared at the child, who now smiled broadly.
Well, Grandma continued, I was looking for a reason to take a break.
The baby grabbed the knitting needle and chomped down.
Yes, she's teething, Grandma smiled. Something to chew on, that's what she needed. Maybe a sip of...
The baby bit through the thick wooden needle. Shattered pieces fell to the ground, followed immediately by a loud wail. Grandma leaned toward me and whispered,
Boy, get me my beads.
I snatched the beads from beside her bedroll. My other hand fought to keep a firm hold on the squirming child. There was no way I'd let my fingers near her mouth. Grandma delicately took her beads. She slid each one through her fingers as if counting them by touch.
It appears you need something a bit sturdier for chewing.
Grandma reached into a deep pocket and pulled out a hard candy. Yellow and white swirled along its shiny surface. To be honest, I'm not sure that it wasn't a marble. Nonetheless, the little fiend clutched at it with plump, eager fingers. A moment later, it was being gummed by a vice disguised as a baby's head. A small yawn escaped the child's even smaller lips. Grandma whispered,
It's milk taffy, she winked. Milk of the poppy taffy.
Within seconds, the only sound coming from the babe in my arms was a soft snoring. Grandma settled onto a bench like a deflating balloon.
You were right to bring me her. Something does appear to be amiss.
She moved her necklace slowly over my sister, as if she were passing it through water. A low hum buzzed from the beads, and they rattled and danced. It hurt my eyes to look upon them. They vibrated so rapidly. Then the beads just stopped. They hung limp and lifeless. I leaned in to see if anything had changed, and they exploded. Every candle in the Vardo hissed out. We fell back against the yielding fabric walls. The only light came from the small fire outside and the cool blue darkness of a waning moon. Grandma clutched her hand against her chest. When she spoke, it came in a timid whisper.
Could it be? No, but What else?
Grandma's thin eyebrows knit together.
I'm afraid to say we are dealing with a changeling. Last night, an evil fairy or elfling must have taken the little one and replaced her with this.
I almost dropped my little sister, changeling, whatever she was. Instead, I held her at arm's reach and gulped. Here we see a picture of the candles being extinguished. Grandma smiled and put a wrinkled hand on the babe's forehead. When she spoke, her voice was quiet and echoed faintly, as if from the bottom of a well.
All is not lost. You can dispel this magic if you quest to the Fey lands and free your sister. Though to enter their realm is certain death. For most. Though you have a chance. Will you accept this challenge?
I'll be honest, part of me didn't want to. She's just a baby. How attached to her could everyone be? Was trying to save her life worth losing my own? But she wasn't just a baby. She was my little sister. No evil elf had the right to pick on her. That was my job. I'd save her, and no one would call me forgettable again. I tried to say I was ready for anything, but I could only manage a small nod. Grandma sighed.
To get to the Fey lands, you need to head north and find the dwarves. Only they can create a sword sharp enough to pierce the veil between this world and the land of chaotic dreams that elflings call home. Once in the fairy lands, the sizes... No, that can't be right.
Grandma shook her head, trying to clear it.
The signs, yes, the signs must align, and you will have a chance to free the child. The signs? What do you mean? I asked. I do not know.
Grandma looked into my eyes.
But I think you will when the time is right. Now, there isn't a moment to waste. Mortals can't survive long in the Fey lands, not unless they're changed into hideous things. You must leave immediately.
Thank you, Grandma. I gave her a kiss, and she squeezed me so hard I thought my heart might pop right out of my mouth. She delicately took the slumbering imposter and nestled her into the bedroll.
This changeling is young. Maybe we can make her into something good.
She tucked the babe tightly into the blanket. Every wrinkle upon my grandma's face held a shadow and hinted at decades of work and love she had experienced. Behind the age and weariness, a determination burned. Grandma wasn't going to lose hope. I wouldn't either. I carefully left the Vardo so as not to wake the babe or disturb my family that was still ringed around a low fire. This was it. I was leaving the Vardo, along with the comfort of my family and facing the dangers of a wide world. I smirked. Come on. How hard could facing the world be when your own face has such roguish charm? I could do this. I had to. Overhead, a sky full of stars sparkled against a dark field of dreams. Shadows reigned supreme before the retreating light of our sputtering campfire. I straightened my shoulders and walked boldly to my pack. Next, I left my family a note and then turned to the rutted trail that led to every unknown I'd ever heard of. I know what you're thinking. You didn't say goodbye? I did, in the note. Look, I don't do that emotional stuff well. I did make the letter really touching despite all that. It was even a couple of sentences long. Before I could change my mind, I bustled from the warmth of our campsite and off into the cool darkness. Soon after that, I found myself running for my life. Dang baby. My heart must be as soft as her head. And we finish with a picture of me leaving the Vardo, walking off into the night. And with that, I say good night, sleep well, and tune in next time for the Barely Balanced Bedtime Theater.